All right. Hello. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We are here for another Science on the Sound speaker series. Today, we have two people here, one from Poogooder and one
Thank
from...
you everyone for joining us today. We are here for another Science on the Sound.
Sorry about that, little technical glitch. But we are here with Poogooder and the Department of Health to talk about water quality issues, and then also talk about how humans and dogs are impacting the water quality itself and ways that we can make a difference in our own backyard, the Puget Sound here. So I am going to give my guest speakers all the time that they need. So take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. My name is Lori Cothy. I'm the, hang on a second. Oops. There we go. I'm the founder of Poogooder, which is a grassroots community organization based out of West Seattle, and where our mission is to help end wayward dog poo for a happier, healthier community and planet. And so along with the dog poo volunteer bin program, we do a lot of outreach, and especially the last few years have been working in the Des Moines Redondo Beach area to help enlighten and educate and enable people to on the reasons why they should pick up dog poo, and that you'll learn about on hopefully today. And then my partner here, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Nusrat Deeply, and I'm an undergrad intern with Public Health Seattle King County for the summer, and also partnering with Lori with Poogooders for my project. I'm graduating with my bachelor's this month, and this was my last part of getting my degree in environmental public health, and I also took courses in pre-med and had a global health minor. I chose to do this internship because of my passion for public health, including all the determinants of health, and all the factors that go into community wellness. Some of my hobbies include being outdoors, trying new places to eat, lifting, and reading. And yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you. And here you can see Nizrat. This is taken at the Des Moines waterfront marina as we walked around and enticed people to take our survey on dog poo attitudes and behaviors and observations. And so later in the presentation, Nizrat will be walking through a preview of the survey data for you to see. So, so the area that is just between Seattle and Tacoma in King County, there's the Des Moines and Redondo Federal Way area, and the water body there is called Poverty Bay, and that it's known, that whole region and with Vashon is an important shellfish harvesting area, particularly for gooey duck, which is a big industry, and also for tribes. And so there's 5 streams that wash down the land into the water, and you can kind of see on the right there, it's Barnes Creek and Massey and McSorley and Redondo Creek and Cold Creek. And the way that the geography is that there's different ways that fecal pollution, basically poop, can work its way down into the water, and it's kind of an eddy the way that that water body is. So it doesn't flush out like some areas. And so a few years back, too much fecal pollution was detected, and so the EPA basically created what's known as a Poverty Bay shellfish protection district. And so so that's how King County Public Health and others got involved to get to work to help reduce the amount of fecal pollution going in. And so some of the ways that fecal pollution gets into our waters, and this goes for anywhere, right, in this region especially, is when septic systems fail. So there's a lot of septic systems. So they're working on helping homeowners with that. And then side sewers can be broken, usually with roots on other things can, especially with older concrete pipes like mine. And then what they call urban wildlife. So like when you see a whole bunch of geese, often you'll see beaches closed because there's just too much the E. coli and the bacteria from too much poop. And so a good way to avoid that is don't feed them. And then dog poop. And so so I got involved in helping with all of this because I somehow became the dog poo lady. And so so today we're going to talk a lot about some of the research we've done. So when we talk about our science, we're going to cover a whole broad range from the science of bacteria and E. coli and climate change, but also the human side of human behavior and the sociology side, because probably everyone here has a dog poo story or has stepped in dog poo or has seen dog poo on the ground and knows that as hard as we try, that's like a persistent issue. But there's always we can always do better. So the picture on the left there shows how this is taken up at the Des Moines Creek and how it just goes right into the bay there. And then also with our stormwater system, all the storm drains, even inland in these neighborhoods, when it rains, then that stormwater carries any of those pollutants, whether it's pesticides or fertilizers from your yard or dog poo or oil from your car leaks. All of that goes into storm drains and it flows directly with outfalls right into the bay. And there's one that you can look at right next to a Mass Aquarium, right? Ariel. So it's one of those things that we set out to create some greater awareness, right, of to help people make that connection between dogs and what we call wayward dog poo left on the ground, and the impact it has can have on people and their health and pets and sea life. And because usually you don't think of like if you're inland that you're actually affecting the rivers or the sound. And so you'll see in a few minutes how the efforts we're doing for that. So here's an example of this Poverty Bay Shellfish Protection District. It kind of covers a little bit of Federal Way and then most of Des Moines. And you can kind of see on the right how there's different rules of like commercial shellfish harvesting and public, like with the beaches and that sort of thing. But in general, that whole region is closed off for commercial harvesting, and the beaches as well are not so great. And there are some water treatment plants there that sometimes will have sewer overflows. And so often people will say, oh, but it's just because of that. That's the only reason, that there's fecal pollution. And it's true that when there is a big overflow, when they can go into the water, and they're working on that infrastructure. But what we found with the research is that there's a heightened level of fecal pollution all the time. And so we know that those just add to it, but they're not the only culprit, which is why, having all of the population work together to find all these little non-point sources is really important. And so, we often see lots of the messaging, right? To know that, there's 23 million fecal bacteria in 1 gram of dog poo, and all these things, heartworms, E. coli, roundworms, all these bad things. But, we see that so often, it's hard to, I think, have people change their ways, right? Or think differently. And also for all well, I always say that, even good people don't like to carry dog poo, right? Or there's always that one bag that you don't have. And so really working with the community and devising ways where we can help the people that are picking up to make sure that one doesn't get away and all those little oopsies, to minimize those. And so we created this zero poo challenge and this imagery to make that connection between the land and the water. And so this is an example of an ad that's currently in the Des Moines Current magazine, that goes out to the whole community, and it has the call for a survey that we have on there that you can still take, and to raise awareness that that there's a bigger impact beyond your shoe. So I was thinking about when we think about public health and dog poo and things, then you often think about Giardia and Parvo and such, like in puddles of rain, right? And so there was this, in April, I think there was this big outbreak of Parvo, which is very dangerous for dogs. That it's usually from dog poo or other things in water. But what was interesting is this was not even a dog park, right? And so that showed okay, well, how much are people using it as an off-leash dog park or not picking up the dog poo? But we always think about it as on land and those impacts. But what often isn't really in our mind's eye, especially if you're inland a bit here, is that if you leave dog poo on the ground and it flows down through the storm drains, then it can make its way right to Mass Aquarium, and right down. And so even if there isn't a certain disease or thing like that in it, it creates a more of a bacterial load. And so an example we have here is that the sea star wasting disease, where the scientists were trying to figure out what is killing our sea stars. It's so weird, they just start to dissolve, and more recently they're discovering, I think it's a bacteria, but the difference is about resilience. It's about, it can, sea stars with sea star wasting disease, or really any organisms, including humans, if we just have a little bit of a load, right, of any bacteria, our immune systems can fight it off. But if we have a bigger load and more and more and more, then it succumbs to it, right? And so adding bacteria from the dog poo and other things, it harms it in ways that we might not think. And that is compounded now too with climate change, because as the water is getting warmer, then more bacteria can grow, and so all that nitrogen and nutrients that are in dog poo can just contribute to growth and things in a harmful way in the water. And then SR3 is also down in the Des Moines area. And for those of you who don't know, it's a sea life response rehab and research center. So it's one of the only marine mammal kind of hospitals in Washington and Oregon. And so all of the baby seals that are orphaned and or in distress, and other marine mammals, are taken here to be rehabbed. And so I've been assured that this pup is sleeping and not dead. So heads up. And so this is a image of a little baby seal, right? And he's got his little umbilical cord there, and everything will be fine. But if there just gets to be too much bacteria or others, like one of the most common and most dangerous infections it can get is that umbilical area, right? Because it can go right into the bloodstream and create a bigger infection, and often they'll have pneumonia and other things. And there's a stat here from SR3 that in the San Juans, 80% of pup mortalities has infections of some kind as a secondary cause. So again, like having dogs on beaches, and then again having it coming in, these are things where you just you don't think like, oh, of course the babies are hauled up onto the shore by their moms during pupping season. And another thing besides just dog poo is the dogs themselves. Having a friendly dog is actually the worst thing ever. Because if you see a pup on the shore and you have a dog, especially off leash, and he comes and he's like, oh, what's that? The mom will see that and often will get scared off and abandon her pup. And so helping people understand that, while it's really wonderful and fun to have dogs off leash on the beach, you can have really unintended consequences. And SR3 gets quite a lot of orphan pups that are just because of humans or dogs interacting with them, and they're just orphaned. So they get sent to the nursery for a few weeks. So again, that whole pups to connect, dogs and dog poo with land and water, and that just how we can all, especially in an urban, an urban and natural world that we're in, with our density of people and dogs, it's, we have to really think differently than if we're just in a very sparse rural area, just because there's so many of us and so many dogs. So how do we measure impact? How do we, when we're set out to be like, okay, make change, how do we know that we're changing behavior? Well, it's super hard, super hard. This is an example. There's this great free app called Pooper Snooper. Highly recommend it if you want to do some citizen science. And so this was back on Alki before I started Poogooder, and my daughter was going to Alki Elementary, and I would walk and drop her off, and I'd walk in the morning and I would start capturing how much dog poo was there, and thought, this is crazy. But it could have just been one person, right? If a dog poops once or twice a day, that's 14 poops in a week, right? So trying to measure things specifically can be hard, and that's really where getting down to that very hyper local community aspect where people know someone, or they can just on every corner work together is really key for making a difference. So why is this so hard, right? Well, people are human. This is the openings, one of the spreads from the Opu, A Cautionary Tale, which was the book that started it all. And if any of you who have a dog have ever felt this way, right? I hold my breath and cross my toes as we get near a tree. Maybe I'll get lucky, and today he will just pee, right? Like maybe you thought you had one more bag and you didn't, and oh, you just don't want to deal with it, right? So as much as we love our dogs, we wish we had poopless ones. But people aren't all bad, right? It's not that everyone's evil that leaves dog poo. It happens to everyone. I have a saying that, like, if you've ever lost a sock in your dryer, then you're probably dropped a poo. And so we did research of like, okay, what are the different things? A hedge funder, the one who hides it in the bushes, the secret Santa that leaves it in a bag, all the different ways as humans that we either avoid or inadvertently leave a piece of poo behind, and but it only takes one to ruin someone's day. But when you add that all up with all the millions of people, then it's a lot of poop. So yes, everyone has a dog poo story, right? But some of the challenges is it's a behavior challenge, right? Like some people, it's just so gross and they don't want to carry it around, right? It's a belief challenge because, some people feel like, well, it's just one piece of poo. What harm can it do, right? And it's a knowledge challenge. They, think, oh, it just washes away clean, right? So we are taking a very multi-pronged approach because there are so many different aspects to like why dog poo, why dog poo happens. And so to really tackle that, the knowledge and the belief and the behaviors by engaging with the community, enabling convenience and enlightening connection. And so that's where having bag dispensers or bins nearby, so it's more convenient. Getting the community involved so they feel like they're part of the solution, and enlightening that connection, right? Like, oh my gosh, like if you know that you're hurting a baby seal, well, maybe that's gonna spark something different. So between those different prongs and levers, there are different angles that we're working on with the community and testing out as this is now the third summer we've been doing this. And again, this is our iconic message to reinforce that circular nature of the land to water and pups to pups. And when we launched it, we had kind of a quiz and then a pledge to scoop where you can sign the dog's cape, and then you can make a difference. So you can be an ambassador and have a sign or a bag dispenser, that kind of thing. And now we have the survey going on. And I had a whole installation down at Mass Aquarium, Redondo, with the story walk of the picture book, and then I think some of the floor decals are still there, which is amazing after 3 years. And so with the quiz and other things, we really, again, started to try to make that connection, to make people think bigger and think about dogs and dog poo as something that is, part of this life cycle, right? And that impact, that every small step makes a big difference when there's so many of us. And so the first one is that, if it's left on the ground, it flows into Puget Sound. Like, wow, really? And then connecting, that's a GUI deck, by the way, for those of you who don't know. And that, that human health, right? So I scoop, well, if you're on the beach and you have kids and they're that bacteria and that E. coli, thinking, about your family and your family's health. And then that stormwater, like really understanding and reading the little signs on the drains. Almost all of them say this flows to a stream, or this flows to the sound. And that awareness, especially in this area, where infrastructure is, a lot of it is just untreated. It goes as raw sewage just directly out. And then with hikers and the out in the woods areas, this is a whole nother challenge, is that it seems to be a norm for hikers to put the bags along the trails and come back and get them. And so we can't put a whole bunch of garbage cans out there. So that's, again, just another thing to be like working on in changing those norms and those accepted behaviors. So people realize, oh, maybe we don't want to be like polluting with plastics and all these things in our natural environment. And so, like, I had a person who was very adamant about leave no trace and telling me all of these things about leave no trace, but had no problem leaving a bag on a day trip on the side. And I was like, what? And so, it's again, like, people are human, and it's all about just finding ways that are convenient and can you can meet people where they are to try to make that little bit of change. And here, like approximately 65% of Des Moines residents have a pet dog. So that urban density with so many dogs really makes a water quality with dog poo a big issue across the whole region. And now I'm going to hand it over to Nusrat. And so so this has been like the last year or two of us working with community and learning from them. And so now this is like kind of preview and Nusrat's final deliverable. So you can just kind of see, well, what do people in the Poverty Bay Protection District, what do they think? And it's I find it to be very fascinating, and I love to hear at the end if any of these data points are surprising to you or confirm your thoughts. And so take it away, Nusrat.
Yeah, so I'm starting with talking about how the community, whether the community thinks that there is a problem or not, and how big they think the problem is. And it was pretty interesting to see that most people think that it's either okay or a mild problem. And you can see that only in South Des Moines do more people think that there is a major problem with wayward dog poop, which is considering that there is the Poverty Bay Shellfish Protection District is known to have a high amount of fecal like coliform pollution. But that was one thing that my survey showed.
Next.
Yeah. And then we also asked where people see dog poop as well, or they leave behind themselves. And we could see that a lot of people said that they don't leave behind dog poop, or they don't see it. They don't leave it behind themselves, or they don't see it being left behind, bagged or unbagged, which is a great thing. But we can also see that there are also a lot of places where people do leave behind or see dog poop, including in or near streams and water, which is, of course, contributing to the issue we're talking about here, as well as neighborhood sidewalks, front yard streets, building grounds, local parks, private beaches, public beaches, and school grounds. And these are all potentially flowing into the storm water drains and going into the freshwater, which is contributing to the issue. This is a map that me and my supervisor NB from public health created using data from the survey. So responders were asked whether there are any hotspots that they can think of where they see a lot of dog poop, wayward dog poop being left behind. And these little flags represent these hotspots that people pointed out within the Poverty Bay Shellfish Protection District. So we can see that there are quite a few flags throughout the whole area. But in the next slide, you'll see that that was only the hotspots that were mentioned within the Shellfish Protection District, but people pointed out a lot of different places throughout the greater Seattle area, such as Everywhere or Seward Park was mentioned multiple times. Hiking trails was brought up a lot. And a lot of people said that they don't know of any hotspots, which is also a good thing. But there's all these places that people have noticed there to be a lot of dog poop. So what are people worried about when it comes to dogs? One of the biggest ones, or some of the biggest ones that stand out, is stepping in dog poop. and off-leash dogs harming me, my dog family, as well as dog poop polluting or damaging property. So we can see that a lot of the biggest concerns are related to what people interacting with the poop and how it impacts us, like stepping in it or harming us, our families, people we love, and then or property, things we own. So a lot of the biggest concerns are around how we interact and see dog poop. Yeah. And then we also saw whether the community thinks that dogs should be allowed on beaches and school grounds, off leash or on a leash, or just not allowed at all. And we can see that a lot more people think, or quite a bit more people think that it's okay for dogs to be off leash at beaches, but not at schools. But we can see that for staying on leash, they want more. We see the same thing where like they want more dogs to be on leashes on school grounds versus at beaches. It doesn't matter as much to people. And then for dogs not being allowed at all, more people think that that should be the case with school grounds as opposed to beaches, which points out that people are concerned about dogs harming children or children interacting with the poop and coming across dog poop or dogs being harmed by dogs. On to the side, I've listed some things that other comments that the survey responders had mentioned, such as, oh, if the dog is well behaved, if the poop is cleaned, or depending on the dog's behavior, or some people said that it's not great because children will pick up the poop, or they said that dogs can stay on leash around school grounds, but only after hours. So a lot of responses are centering around harming people and their children. For trying to see why people ever pick up their poop and reasons why they do care about doing it, we see that the biggest reason is to be a good neighbor or dog parent. But there's also one of the least chosen options was protecting the health of marine plants and animals, keeping it safe to eat local shellfish, and preventing water pollution. These were all very low compared to the other answers, also as well as preventing disease outbreak. But that just shows that there may be a disconnect between being considered a good dog parent or a good neighbor versus all these water and marine animal protection reasons. So that just offers a suggestion that maybe education about how these reasons are connected to being a good neighbor or dog parent should be put out to this community. And then we wanted to see if the survey responders or anyone they know, their own dogs themselves, have been affected by being any diseases such as E. coli, norovirus, parvo, giardia worms, etc., from fecal pollution exposure. And we saw that about like a quarter of responders had said that they do know of someone or themselves or their dog that has been affected. But about half said no, which is good. But we can see that considering the amount of people that said that they're not sure, and the people that do know someone that has been affected, it might be a bigger issue than we even think than they even think it is, looking at this data. And lastly, we asked about what solutions that the community may recommend for reducing wayward dog poop. And one of the one that there were actually all of them were chosen in all of the options that we gave, such as more public garbage cans, better methods to carry dog poop, more enforcement of scooping laws, and having more public dog food dispensers, as well as education about why scooping matters. All of these were chosen throughout all of the areas that people come from. And but more public garbage cans was one that was chosen a lot, as well as having more dispensers, because that definitely makes things easier if you have readily available dog poo bags and somewhere to throw it away, accessible. So and one of our options, which isn't on there because there was that nothing will help the issue, and nobody chose that, which is a great thing. So people think that this is an issue that we can make a difference in, with all these various solutions. But this just offers suggestions for each area, what would be the best solution or priorities in coming up with solutions, which gives hope that we can solve this water pollution issue moving forward, as well as how we can better do outreach towards this community about this issue.
Thanks, Guzrat. That's great. So, so as a recap, some ways that if you're inspired now, hopefully we've piqued your interest and you didn't know what you didn't know. Here's 5 ways that you can be a zero poo hero, which is to basically help aim for zero poo. One is to always bring an extra bag, since as in some of our data that, you know, not having a bag was one of the top reasons. And so whether you're tying it onto a leash and like you have a spare, things like that, can, you know, it's there for someone else too if they need it. So that's a great just habit to get into. Carry the bag of dog poo with you. Please don't be a secret Santa and leave it behind to get later, because it's creates a lot of plastic pollution and you know, just gets into the environment. And we've found lots of the actual bags in the water or in the streams. Some of because the streams are the water sampled and tested often, and so they report back and actually find bags in the streams and such. So which eventually break open. So if we can find more ways to make it easier to carry dog poo, that's a great challenge to work on. And leash what you love. So we heard often sometimes if people they don't notice the dog food, or they can't find it because they went into the bushes. By keeping a dog on a leash, that can help reduce the amount that you can accidentally miss. And also, as in some of the data showed, in these urban areas, you just never know if other people have reactive dogs on leashes. And so dogs behave differently when some are on leash and others are off leash. And then just again with like the sea life and wildlife, that it's just a good idea to keep the dog on leash for their protection and yours. And to save the beach for seal pups. If you can just take your dog to a shoreline that is allowed for dogs, that's awesome. Or really be aware of pupping season, and keep a distance if you see one or any sea life, within sight, to give them their space, so they can be healthy with their family too. even though they're cute, don't do the selfie. They're so cute though. And then you can make a difference and get involved. There's with zeropoo.com and poogooder.com, and get we're joining kind of an alliance, and always doing research and creating new solutions. And we have bag dispensers and bins and other things we're doing with communities. And so the more like-minded people we have that get involved, it's really great to kind of share knowledge and findings and tricks and tips on what's working in for different people, and really to just be very non-judgmental, right? To be like, hey, we're in this together. Everyone has their their reasons and all of that, but what are just little ways that each of us can make little small steps to go in the right direction. And yeah, so let's do some good today. That's our motto. And there we go. All right, and that's what we have for you today. I'll send it back to you, Ariel.
Okay. I learned so much, even with somebody who deals with poop, water, and all of that all the time. Yeah, so much out of this, which is super exciting. I've got some questions to ask you both if you are ready to field some questions. Awesome. Okay, so with this, give me 1 second. I've got first an observation that has me shocked, that everybody is very people centric when it comes, like the data set. It was always about people first, people impacts. But these are animal lovers, right? Like they have a pet, they have a dog. So my first question for both of you is, what is that next step with this data? How do we bridge that knowledge gap or that disconnect between the people who are animal lovers, but they are very people first? How do we get them to include animals into that dialogue, or include, at least if it's not including marine life, because they might have that bigger disconnect that I live farther inland, how do we get them to connect it to other dogs or other wildlife in their area to like start moving forward to like everything upland affects water? How do we do that?
Mm-hmm. Nizar, do you want to go first? Do you have any thoughts?
Sure. I recently saw the I think it was Seattle recreation Parks and Recreation that posted it on their Instagram, that there was like a bunch of beach parks that were closed to swimming, or like they're just not safe to be in for both humans and dogs. And that it doesn't say a reason why, but it just says that it's not safe. But I think making that connection, like, oh, the reason why that you can't is because of pollution due to reasons that you may be contributing to, such as leaving your dog poop behind. And then also just saying that the reason why it's unsafe, like what's in it, as well as that these are being constantly tested for, like these waters are being constantly tested for because of the reason of water pollution, and how like runoff and all that it goes into these places that you want to go swimming in or your dog wants to go swimming in. So making that connection that it does affect you. It doesn't really matter if you live near the beach or not, but it does affect you, and these are the reasons why. But yeah, I think that's something that came up off the top of my head.
Yeah, I love that. I love the fact I heard this term. It's not calling out, it's calling up, of like, all right, here's the problem. Now let's do something about it, using that kind of like that peer pressure to create change. I love that.
Yeah, and that modeling. And I think, Ariel, your point about they're animal lovers, right? I mean, and I know with like even with Poogooder up here with the bin stewards, a lot of people, they don't have kids, like they have the dogs but not the kids, right? And so those, they really are family members, and I think that was really the basis for, like, I'm glad we have this image on here right now where to make that connection to like pups to pups, like, oh wait, like I love my dog so much, and oh wait, that's a pup too. And with this like face cutout board to help people make that connection by having their dog's face there, or their own, and to really, share that that community and empathy, right? That people have, because that bond with animals and dogs is very strong, but sometimes it can work against you. You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's my dog and you can do whatever, right? And so, but really channeling into that love and empathy and care for kids and your own family, to be like, hey, this is your extended family. This is you love this environment, and and there's all these animals too that are part of this group. So
I love that these answers are like both sides of the spectrum. Like one is hit their gross factor, something that they don't like, and the other one's like hit the thing that they love the most. So I love it. Like it works through that whole gradient of scale there. Another thing that just blew my mind: 23 million fecal coliform bacterias in a gram of dog poop just sends the ick factor like full goes for that. So like, you're talking about E. coli, parvo, giardia, salmonella, all of these different bacteria that are carried in that poop, that not only from the data that people can get, but like people are more concerned about people getting these. So like, how do we get that message out there more? Like, yes, we know dog poop is gross, but like all of these things could easily not only jump from dog to dog, but like from human to human. How do we work on that gross factor, right? Like, because yeah, people love what they love, but like not everybody loves dogs. So how do we reach into that other group with this gross factor of, hey, we could be spreading parvo around, or we could be spreading giardia around, or like that stuff that you're stepping in on the sidewalk, you track into your house, now could get to either cats if you're a cat lover, right? Or like to your babies that are crawling on the ground. Like how do we reach those audiences that might not have a dog, or like don't care about the dogs side of this?
Yeah, Nujat, do you have a comment? You can say no. I just want to give you first answer back.
You can go.
Okay. Yeah, I think that is, that's what's so funny, right? Because there's that gross factor, like, I don't want it, but like, I empty out these dog food bins all the time, and it's not gross because it's in a bag. It's already like encased. And so I think that aspect of like, every poop every time right away, like, and get it in the bag, like that's almost good for the germaphobes. And I think with Poogooder and going with the community and having everything more accessible too, is that what I found is that people either that even don't even have a dog or are out walking, if they know that there's an extra bag or a bin nearby, they've told me they will, if they see other dog poo, they will pick up that dog poo and take care of it, right? And so it's really an opportunity to have everybody looking out for everybody, to get those ones that are left behind. And so on the gross part, I think it's almost it's a good motivator, right? That, ooh, okay, maybe I don't want this anywhere except in a bag. And that's the other thing too, is the whole composting. That is one of the questions that we have on the quiz and other things, is there's some questions about, can we compost it in compostable dog food bags? And King County and our whole region is like, no, please put it in the garbage, because of all these pathogens and stuff that currently the composting facilities do not get hot enough to kill the pathogens. And really, you should not try to compost dog poo at home for lots of reasons if you're going to be using it, for your garden or all of those things. So it hopefully eventually it will change, working on that. But for now, like if you ever have any questions, the best thing is always bag it and put it in the garbage, because even compostable dog poo bags don't do any good because they won't compost in the landfill. So, but you can go for like Earth Rated and others have they use post consumer plastics, so at least we're giving things a second life. But yeah, that's where dog poo is really. It's really an important topic because it is about water quality and environment and social dog poo wars and relationships in communities and public health, but it's also a huge solid waste issue to try to resolve and a plastics industry issue. And so it's dare I say, exciting. It's a really great time to be continually innovating and finding ways like, how can the dog poo not be a problem, but actually be an asset, right? And so we're, working through ways that maybe, how can it become a fuel or something else? Because it's a little bit ridiculous that it is the way it is right now, but it's just the nature of having, such a density of dogs, and also that they, like if you go out hiking or whatever, you can't just let the dog poop out there because it's not natural. You're introducing weird chemicals that are in dog food and potentially all kinds of other things that can harm the land life, if you will. So yeah, we have to create new man-made solutions for man-made problems.
So Lori, you had said a term, non-point source pollution. Can you elaborate on what that is?
Yes. And so with water quality and pollution or things, you could have a point solution where we could say, oh, it's that water treatment plant. So we know exactly what source that's coming from, or maybe it's a specific septic thing that is broken. But with a non-point is kind of a term that's used where it's ambient, right? It's like a whole bunch of things all together. So it's all those millions of dogs, dog poo that's all just happening. So you can't pinpoint the entire problem to one specific point source. It's kind of scattered, which really requires more of a systematic approach to try to cover that whole area.
Awesome. Thank you for that clarification. Knowing
Yeah.
we know it's dogs, we just can't track exactly what dog it is yet.
Exactly. And you being a scientist, correct me on, I'm sure in marine biology and out there's probably some additional details. So
Yeah.
please feel, chime in to color my definition.
Yeah, it's that non-point source pollution that is the cause to a lot of that bacteria overload in the water that, we've got to educate because we can't go to the culprit right now. So yeah, definitely. Nusrat, you were talking about in the results that the people's perspective is different from what like their results were showing. They're like, it's not a problem, but yes, there is a lot of dog poop and I've stepped in dog poop. How we talked about like the disconnect in the education of here's the results and educating the people on them, but how do we get to the people who are like, I don't see it's a problem, but then they're like, yeah, it is a problem. Like, how do we go towards those people? Or like, did you see a certain group of people were like that were giving those results? Were they people with dogs, people without dogs? Like, where are these results specifically coming from?
I'm not sure if it's like designated towards like a certain group of people that were saying that. It just seemed like an overall trend that people like most people didn't think that it was like less people that thought that there was a major problem. Majority of people had said that there it was okay or like a mild issue, but most of the people that answered or took the survey were dog owners. So it's mostly dog owners that said that. But I think something that could reach people that don't have dogs or people with dogs too, that might help them change their behavior is that, like with Lori bringing up the seals and how the wayward dog poop increasing bacterial load, like that can affect like their health through like infections with like the umbilical cord. Like that's something I didn't know, and I'm sure like no one really knows that unless you're like super into like like water pollution and issues. But that's something that maybe educating people about those types of things that like most people wouldn't know of, but that might cause them to change their behavior or like have some sort of impact on them for changing their ways. Like that could be something, as well as just the diseases as well. Like people don't like that's something that can affect anyone, and it doesn't really matter if you have a dog or not either, because it's just like, oh, like you step in this area, you might not even step on the directly on the dog poop, but it's like runoff, and then you wear your shoes, like as you said, like you wear your shoes inside, and then that just it can affect anybody. And just emphasizing that could also be in education, that could be another thing, as well as like making the education more accessible, because the area is very diverse. There's lots of different languages that people speak. So that's another thing. As well as like reaching people that aren't at the beach, as well. So going to other community areas as well.
Yeah, I love that. Especially down here in Redondo, being open on Saturdays, we have so many different community members coming down here. Even dogs will come down here. And so yeah, I definitely hear the need for a further reach in that marine education, because we do have a lot of people that are in the valley or up on like Kent Hill, Auburn area that aren't a part of the Shellfish District, but still their water will go into the sound and affect it. So yeah, I completely agree on needing to make sure that not just the people on the beach or near the water get that education, but everybody receives that education, which again, I want to say thank you to you two for being a part of that education, because of us streaming on YouTube, we can have a much farther reach. One last question before we run out of time here. You both were talking about hikers, which usually hikers are environmentalists and want to conserve nature, but finding poop on trails and parks and beaches, just that place, that gateway where we're going to commune with nature and usually are the ones who want to conserve that nature. What is the biggest way we can reach those people, the people that we think we've already educated, that think that have that knowledge of no, you should not be leaving dog waste and plastic now in the environment? Because from Nurat, your surveys of like, do I need to carry it, or is there more poop bags on trails? We can't go 5 miles in and put a trash can, unfortunately. So how do we, one, we were talking about education, but make it easier for dumping waste while we're out in nature, where we can't really have those man-made objects or receptacles out there? How do we make it easier for those people to actually create a change or be a part of that action?
You have any ideas?
I would say just I really like the design of the dispensers that we handed out actually, because it has like a little attachment to it that you can just tie the bag to. So like you don't need to carry it physically or have it in your bag or anything like, or have it like on you. It's just attached to the carrier itself. So I think that's like a good idea for like just designing dispensers. And then some people, one person at least said in the survey that trailheads, there'll be a lot like the garbage will be full and they'll just leave them like beside the garbage at trailheads because there's just so many people like visiting and throwing their trash. But so maybe that trash needs to be picked up more, or like there just needs to be more trash cans because like it's just like a one trash can, and like Washington is like big for hiking. There's lots of people hiking. So and it's probably not picked up often. So that's another be that could be thought about.
Yeah. Nice.
That's one thing we've definitely learned with Poogooder is that if you put a trash can there it's like turning a faucet on that has no stop. Like it just becomes like an okay to kind of throw it near it and overflow it. But I think too that with the hiking part, it's about it's like a mom group, right? Where they start to give tips of like, oh, here's how to, carry diapers or whatever. And really, if anyone's out there in the hiking community, please reach out to me because I am looking for, influencers or people who, have tips or that can share with each other, because that's so much what it's about is people giving each other little hints and influencing them and modeling behavior and creating norms together and to work on that, right? And so and experimenting and innovating, right? Creating new things and learning like, oh, it's too bouncy for, whatever. Okay, well, let's design something new. And so it's really all about innovation and listening but that modeling part, because I think with the bags and hikers, I think the challenge is that it's an accepted norm. Like they've accepted it. And so that means we need a new leader. We need them to have to kind of work on that, hey, maybe that's not such a great accepted norm. So.
Awesome. Well, I want to say thank you for all of this great knowledge. I've learned so much. Even with Lori, I've done 3 or 4 talks with you now and just learning even more. And then Nusrat, for your education and those surveys to get those people's actual feedback is just invaluable with the way that we can change our education and how we market to different people. So thank you to you both. And I do want to make a comment that I've gotten dog poop bags and carriers from Poogooders, and I have to say I love them both. One, because of that little like hook handle that you can put the dog poop on, but also they're so easy to open. I think that's a challenge for some of us dog owners. I own 2 dogs that I can't ever get the bags open for some reason. I don't know if it's a technique or if it's the type of material, but like it takes me forever to get those bags open. But the green environmental ones that come with that dispenser are so easy to open, which makes it so much faster and easier. Just pick up that poop, throw it away. And then also you had the carriers, like the green carriers that is kind of like a mini trash can where it has a carabiner, you close it, hook it to the backpack. Oh my gosh, that has made night and day difference, I would have to say. That at first I was like, I don't know if I'll ever use it, like I'm usually within a trash can or 2. But yeah, trash cans overflow, or like I'm not near a trash can, that it's nice to be able to put the waste in something that's not going to get all over my own stuff. Awesome. So yeah, love the stuff that you give out. And I just want to make a pitch for anybody who is listening. If you see Poogooders anywhere, please stop at their booth, take their surveys, take their free goodies that they've got, because they're doing some amazing work, both near the beaches and inland, that also save our pups in the water too. So again, thank you both for educating us today on wayward dog poop and how it impacts us. Again, if you are interested, Poogooders is going to be at our Dogfish Days of Summer this year. So this August, keep a lookout for that on the Mast social medias, and share this video. It'll be up on our YouTube page with anybody that who owns a dog or is a dog walker or somebody who hikes with a dog so that we can try to change some of this behavior out there. And then next month, our speaker will be Envy from Public Health, talking about other ways humans impact water quality and ways that we can change our own habits at home. But again, thank you both so much. I truly appreciate it. But any last words before we go?
I'm so glad that you're my tester for the little can. So, and
Anytime
again,
you
like, people who want to
tester.
test products for me, I want to, it's all about learning. And so you can reach me at zeropoo@poogooder.com or go to zeropoo, and there's links over to Poogooder as well. And I'd love to hear from you and just say hi. And yeah, and thanks again, Ariel. It's great between SR3 and MAST and the whole area. It's really a great alliance that we're all doing together and sharing. And we, really love the community input. It keeps us going and helps us helps be our guiding, our North Star. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for letting me join as well, Lori and Ariel. I've learned a lot from both of you, and it's been a great experience. So thanks for letting me join.
Yeah, great job.
Awesome. And I want to say premature congratulations on end of your internship, and looking forward to having you graduate in May. So, woo-hoo, so excited.